And with that, everybody, welcome to College Football Wraparound. Today, it is week 5 and it is September 25th. Welcome, everybody. Today, there is a lot to talk about in college football. And so, we are happy you have chose to be with us today here on Saber Broadcast Network. And joining me today is my dad, Jack.
Good morning, Cooper. How's it going?
Pretty good. So, we got a lot to get to. And of course, you wanted to start off by talking about teams and coaching. And today, so, um, who are some of the teams and the coaches that you really want to talk about today?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think we're going to start with USC. Them firing Clay Helton this early, I think it's dumb firing this early. And I did a little bit of research. You look at his record. So in the years he was there, he was 46-24. He won the Pac-12 a couple years ago. He's won the division 3 times, but he hasn't won that big time game. Yes, he won the Rose Bowl a couple years ago, but he's really just it doesn't seem to make the fans happy. But I don't think he's that bad of a coach. When you compare it to Lane Kiffin was there before him, 28-15. Both of them got fired halfway through a season. I don't know where USC thinks they're going. I think it was too early in the season to start looking for a new coach because it's a lot of coaches that, I mean, a lot of rumors, James Franklin is one of the names that keeps coming up. It's not going to leave at this time. You're not going to announce that you're going to take his head job 2-3 weeks to the season. I think they fired him too soon. They was going to fire him. I think they should have done it in the off season. I just don't see why I do it this early. That's one I won't talk about. The next one is Florida State. Here we go again. And they're in bad shape again. I look back at the record. Willie Taggart, 9-12, fired halfway through the season. Mike Norvell, 3-8. Well, 3-9 after last week. So he's 3-9. Jimbo Fisher, there before them, went 83-23, won that championship. Of course, we know what Bobby Bowden did. I don't know what Florida State suspected. Are they willing to fire a coach? And that, again, halfway through the season. If they do, where do they go? I read one rumor is that people think Deion Sanders will take that job. Obviously, being a Florida State guy, now I don't know, but that's a tough situation to go into. Deion. I mean, that's two of the main ones you want to talk about, and there's others that depending on what happens today. LSU's another one that people are looking at, as far as their coaching situation. Coach O, yeah, won championship. Other than that, really been that's about an average coach, I would say. And I was reading earlier, some names have been mentioned about him. If he takes over, if he wants to be fired, people take over. There's names like Billy Napier, Matt Campbell. I've seen Chris Peterson. Used to be at Washington. And there's several. Of course, Joe Brady's name come up. But there again, if they were to lose to Mississippi State today, I could see him possibly being fired. I think that's in that spot. I mean, that's 3, and there's plenty more, but those are the main 3 I kind of look at right off.
And you've also got Ohio State and Nebraska as potential people to lose their coach.
Well, the whole Ohio State's not so much losing the coach. It's more he's ready to change the coaching staff. He basically kept the same coaching staff that Urban Meyer. And I think the defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, this past week, defensive back coach actually called defense instead of regular coordinator. So if you're doing that, there's some problems there. If you actually go back and look at the way they played this year and go back to the championship against Alabama, their defense hasn't been that good. So there's obviously some problems there. And you don't change just one coach, you change a whole staff. There's some problems there that's probably manifest. Nebraska, in the other 2-2. But losing Oklahoma, they played really good at Oklahoma. There was a few little things that they cleaned up, should have helped them. But they go to Michigan State. If they win Michigan State tonight, the Scott Frost probably okay. I think if they can win tonight, you're looking at possibly a 7 or 8 win season. And that would probably keep his job, and then you go from there. But if he was to get gone, there again, looking at the rumor mills, a couple of names that popped up on their message boards. The one that a couple of names, Jim Harbaugh's name, No, he's not going to Nebraska. He's not leaving Michigan for Nebraska. That's not happening. But the name I like is Zach Taylor, Cincinnati's coach. He was, if I'm not mistaken, played quarterback at Nebraska. But I don't. I think that's on down the line. I don't think Nebraska would fire him till the season's over, or at least to the last game or two. But yeah, and there's other ones. But I mean, that's Nebraska's interested in what they do the rest of the year.
And I kind of agree with you about the USC thing. I mean, I don't know of any big time coach that's going to look at that situation at USC and say, why would I leave a good spot? Like, let's take James Franklin into consideration. I mean,
Yeah.
both Penn State and USC, if you look at it, both jobs are about equal in the opportunities of what you've got there. And Penn State is a blue blood of college football, just like USC. So, I mean, in my mind, and I mean, the only determining factor, if I'm James Franklin for wanting to leave, is maybe to get out in California where it's a little warmer. But I mean, at the same time, I just don't understand why you would be in the middle of a season and your team. I mean, this is probably the best team you've had at Penn State. You've got a chance to go to the playoff. I just don't. I don't see where you would say that you would leave Penn State during the best season you've had in a long time. So that makes no sense. And then I've heard names like PJ Fleck from Minnesota who could potentially take the job. And to me, I think that makes more sense. I mean, yes, he's got a good team at Minnesota right now, but to me, I think that it makes the most sense because he'd be taking a better job at USC than what he's currently got at Minnesota, and the more talented players are going to be willing to go out to USC than they would Minnesota. So, I mean, I think he makes more sense than what James Franklin. But then again, would PJ Fleck be the right fit for USC? And I think there's a lot of determining factors with USC as who would be the right fit. But I think this is one thing where, and it's what I've been saying for a while, I think, and I mean, I understand you've done this the last couple times with your head coach, but, you got Clay Helton who was an assistant to Steve Sarkisian when Steve Sarkisian was fired. Or did he? I think he stepped down. Whatever happened with Steve Sarkisian that he left. Clay Helton was on the staff already, and he was promoted to head coach. I think you could see a similar thing happen because USC loves the offense that Graham Harrell is running. So I think potentially, I mean, for now, you could get Graham Harrell and promote him up to head coach, and potentially let him continue calling the plays.
I can see that, but personally, I think you got to go completely out of the program. I think you've stayed since, you go back to Pete Carroll, then you Kiffin, Sarkisian, Clay Helton. I think it's time just to get a clean sweep, get out of all of it. And in fact, if you go back to history, when Pete Carroll got a job, this guy had been fired twice in the NFL, but yet he had the right personality and the right fit at USC. So, I mean, the next coach will probably be somebody you're not really going to expect. Yeah, USC, I think it's a top 5 job. I think it's one of the better jobs you can get. I don't see James Franklin leaving Penn State. I think Penn State's a good job. But there's plenty of guys I think would take a USC job, but I don't know. There's somebody out there that nobody's talking about who probably end up with that job, though.
Right. And I guess right now it's just to figure out who is it going to be. So we'll see down the road. Of course, there's still a lot of college football to be played. This is just the 5th week, and we've still got a lot of football. We haven't even gotten into October yet. We're talking about coaching changes. But Florida State, though, you mentioned Mike Norvell could be on the hot seat. And you brought up Deion Sanders. And, I mean, personally, Deion Sanders has not been a head coach very long. He coached in the spring season for the FCS this past year with Jackson State. Then he's got this year. Now, as a head coach, I mean, yes, I understand that Dion played at Florida State, but to me, if you're looking at who you're going to hire for head coach, I mean, don't you want to see more out of him as far as like him get a bigger job as far as coaching in the FBS and seeing what he can actually do against some of these teams? I mean, I don't. I guess I'm just skeptical about a team like Florida State, who is. I mean, that's a good job, and them going out and hiring an FCS coach. I mean, yes, I understand he played at Florida State, but at the same time, he hasn't coached in the FBS yet. So my thing is, can you really determine that just because he played at Florida State, he is good enough to coach Florida State? That's my question.
Well, I agree with that, but here's the problem with Florida State though. You had Jimbo Fisher who took over, was handpicked by the Bowdens to take over, coached with Bowden for a couple of years and just slid into the head job, won that championship, made the playoffs the next year. Then within about 3 or 4 years after that, he leaves. And like I said, it was 83-23. It wasn't a record. There's something there that doesn't make sense. There's something that program is a problem. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
here's a guy that left Florida State to go to Texas A&M. You go from being one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the whole conference to being hopefully the second, third best team in the division. You took a lesser job. Yes, you get guaranteed money and all that, but I don't think you took. I think you took a step back going from Florida State to Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
Then you bring in Willie Taggart, who's supposed to be this great coach, could make it 2 years. Mike Norvell, another supposed to be a good script. He's in his second year. He's actually doing worse than Willie Taggart. So
Mm-hmm.
to take this job, it's going to be somebody it's going to take a special person. Where I think Dion could take the job, could hopefully build the program around and get some recruits in there, and he would stick around. Is he a good coach? That's debatable. Can he coach this level? That's debatable too. But there's been plenty of guys who stepped in to be head coaches that's never been a coach or anything and done pretty good. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And I mean, Mike Norvell, they may win out and just don't have to worry about it. I don't see it happening. They still got to play Miami, Florida, and I believe they play Clemson, and I believe they play North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina. They still got 3 or 4 games, and they look very bad. Yeah, they look pretty good against Notre Dame, but they lost. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't see. I can see them only winning a couple of games, and could they be into it? Probably. But the thing is, the money with his buyout and what's going to have to pay him, Willie Taggart, plus another coach, it may be impossible to fire him this year. It'd be interesting
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
And then LSU is another team you put on here because Ed Orgeron, who you said could be like another Gene Chiswick situation, wins the national championship and then a couple years later gets fired.
True.
And I mean, honestly, I'm in the same boat with you. I don't think Ed Orgeron's gonna make it through the rest of the season. And I mean, I've been talking about this, and I'm like, if Les Miles wouldn't have had the allegations at Kansas, you you have potentially seen a reunion with him in LSU? That would have been something interesting to see. But of course, I don't think that's happening.
No.
So, I mean, from my perspective, I think Joe Brady would be a smart hire, and because he's the one that brought in the system that helped them win the national championship a couple years ago with Joe Burrow and all those receivers and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they had they had a lot of talent, and they still got a lot of talent. But I don't think Ed Orgeron's doing a good job with his hiring on the staff. And plus, I mean, if you're an assistant, would you want to go coach under Ed Orgeron? That's my question.
Well, to me, it's not so much coaching with him as where you're at, though. LSU's one of the better places to coach, and you can build your stock up. Joe Brady, let's take what he did. He went to LSU 1 year. All of a sudden, he's in the pros now. Would he consider coming back to be a head coach at college? I don't know, because it's like a lot of guys don't like the college game because you got to do a lot of recruiting and stuff. But the thing with LSU, it's not so much on the field; there's a lot of off the field problems too. And Coach O don't seem to really handle that. From what we hear, a lot of stuff don't seem to be handled the right way. And you got
Hmm.
Title IX possible lawsuit coming. There's a lot of stuff going on that I think if they lose today, they can make it pretty easy. If you lose Mississippi State, you still got to play Arkansas, A&M, Alabama, Auburn. I think they play Georgia or Florida from their side. You still look at a very rough season. But if it win today, we don't know. They may make a run like they did a couple years ago. Today determined a lot. And let's not forget, Mississippi State beat them last year, first game of the season.
Yeah. And it was a weird season 2 last year with COVID and everything too. And it was, and there wasn't a lot of practice at that time. Because if you look at it, isn't that the first time that you actually really got to, maybe they may have had like a week of practice leading up into the game day, but of course there wasn't a lot of practice. Players, a lot of missed assignments on defense and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
we'll see what happens. But now let's turn our attention because you got a couple games you have chose for us to pick today, and we start off Clemson at NC State. Who do you got?
Well, I like Clemson. I know everybody's talking about how bad they look. They've struggled, but they've done this in the past. They're still talent-wise best team in the ACC. I see them winning out. I know people they may get lose again. I see them winning out. I see them potentially being a playoff team. I see them winning pretty easily today.
Yeah. Clemson. Yes. They most likely will win out. But that doesn't, to me, I still think that they're going to get challenged somewhere along the way. You lost to Georgia, and then you had a scare last week to Georgia Tech, who, let's be honest, Georgia Tech's not really that good of a football team right now. So, yes, there's a lot of parity that goes into college football, and I'm going to go Clemson here, but I would not be shocked at all if NC State, they're playing at home against Clemson. I could see NC State really scaring Clemson today. And I think that, I think honestly, if you're going to go look at that ACC championship game, if North Carolina were to get there against Clemson, I feel like North Carolina looks better than Clemson right now, and I think North Carolina could potentially beat Clemson. So,
yes.
So I'm going to go Clemson right now because I don't think they're going to lose. All right, next one, LSU at Mississippi State.
Well, we talked about this one, and Mississippi State should be undefeated. I know stuff happened last week against Memphis, and they got beat. They're 2-1. But there again, I look at the talent. LSU, I think, has got better talent. Plus, losing to them last year, I think revenge factor will be there. I like LSU in this game.
Well, first of all, I think for LSU, you do have a little bit of worry here because you're probably the best defensive player in the SEC, Derek Stingley Jr., will be out today against Mississippi State with a foot injury. So that could be big as far as because Mississippi State likes to play the air raid with Coach Mike Leach. I'm going to go Mississippi State because I have a feeling right now that without Derek Stingley, I don't see LSU really winning this game. With all that's going on with LSU, I don't think they're going to win this game, and I feel like this is going to be a bad season for LSU. So I'm going to go Mississippi State.
All right.
Then we got Tennessee at Florida.
Well, this right here used to be one of the top 2-3 games in the conference, and it's still a big game. Tennessee, yes, they won last week, and they got beat. They're 2-1. Well, I think we'll get a good idea how good they really are this week when they go to Florida. Florida, I think, how they can rebound after what happened last week in the game day. But teams should have went to overtime against Alabama. You missed the extra point, so then you had to go for 2, and then made a bad play. So it's going to be interesting how Florida comes back from that, how Tennessee – is Tennessee, where are they at as far as the program? Are they back to competing in the East? But with that being said, I still like Florida. Florida playing home, I like Florida.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be really hard for Tennessee to go into Gainesville and get a win. And plus, when you watch Florida, they looked really good last week. I mean, yes, they got down big and had to try to fight their way back. And they almost got to overtime against an Alabama team who coming in last week to that Alabama-Florida game, we thought, oh, look, Alabama's going to probably put up 40, 50 points and beat Florida by about 30 or 20 to 30 points. But Florida played really well in this game at home. Now, I mean, moral victories are not what you go for in this sport. But if you are a person who is a Florida fan, you got to feel good about your team right now. I mean, you just about beat Alabama, and you played a good game. And Bama really struggled in this game. So I'm going to go Florida because I think they're going to. I mean, I think Tennessee could potentially be good, but I don't think it's this year.
Yeah.
So, all right, our first neutral site game and one of our two ranked games of the day, Texas A&M and Arkansas in Arlington, Texas at AT&T Stadium in Jerry's World. Who do you got?
Well, I already know we're not going to agree on this one, but I like A&M. I know Arkansas, they've won. They beat Texas. Everybody's like, oh, Arkansas, they're going to be one of the top teams. But let's not forget, before the season started, A&M was a lot of people picked in a possible win the SEC, a possible playoff team. They got one of the top 3 or 4 coaches. This is a neutral site. This will be the first time they can really, I think this is the game A&M's breakout game. I think I like A&M in this one.
Well, like you said, we're not going to agree, and I'm going Arkansas. But the thing I want to see from A&M is I want to see from Zach Calzada. I mean, coming to the season, he was named the backup to Haynes King. Haynes King got hurt last week. So, I mean, not last week, but I think it's 2 weeks ago. So I think what you want to see here is, can A&M can Zach Calzada play really good and help lead the Aggies to what would be a big win early in the season to an Arkansas team who has been struggling last few years, who is now potentially back. I'm going Arkansas because I think when you look at the status of your players, I think Arkansas has a good offense this season. Plus, they got one of the best defenses in college football. So I think Arkansas is going to win this football game.
Right.
And our game of the week, Notre Dame and Wisconsin, coming up in just moments. Who do you got?
Well, there again, this is a big game. I think 2 teams are pretty much identical. But I like Notre Dame. They just I don't know. I'm not convinced Wisconsin's that good. And Notre Dame, they've been actually one of the top pros last several years. I like Notre Dame.
I'm going to go Notre Dame because you look at Graham Mertz, the quarterback at Wisconsin. Against ranked teams, he has not played that good. Of course, it's just he started last year during the COVID season, which was shortened to like 4 or 5 games for him. And, of course, they played Penn State to begin the season this year, which was not an easy game to begin with. So, I look at this game as a game where, I mean, if you're Wisconsin, you want to see more improvement out of Graham Mertz in big games. But at the same time, I don't think they got enough, and I think Jack Cohn will beat his former team in Wisconsin. So, Notre Dame. Well, that is it for today. Thanks for joining us here on College Football Wraparound. And as always, we'll be back next week, same time, same channel, here on Saber Broadcast Network. Enjoy your college football Saturday.